Yo, what's up guys? New video talking about artifacts. And the reason I'm making this video is because we are going to have the SF and PC Abyss dungeons pretty soon. I think it's SF at the end of August and PC at the end of the next month. So for that reason, it's pretty interesting to look at artifacts and where to use. I did make a video about how to farm artifacts and what artifacts to look for previously already. And I will be linking that in the description down below. And that one is a little bit older, but still very relevant. So what am I focusing on this video? I'm going to be focusing on specifically going into each individual unit and calling out what artifact lines I recommend to go for the unit. However, a few things to keep in mind. Metas might change and therefore some units might be used a little bit differently. I will be calling out if a unit is used in multiple places like Siege, RTA, Arena, Offense, Defense, Dungeons, whatnot. I will be mentioning like the different things individually as well. I will be calling out left artifact and right artifact. The main reason for that, it's just easier than saying the type and the element every time. So element is the left, type is the right one, just to keep that in mind. And in general, a big disclaimer, it's often better to go for a multiple set of lines that are useful towards your unit, rather than just saying like, okay, I have Illusion, I just go crit damage skill 3, like the highest I have, and that is probably good to go. No, technically it's actually better to go for an artifact that has sudden crit damage S3, some attack increasing effect, and some additional damage from attack, for example, or crit damage max or something like that. How can you figure out for like most damage? Well, to be honest, it's just try on it. But let's get into the video of this specific element and let's go through every unit. So I'm gonna press on this one to get the arrow up, and I start from the top this way all the way to the bottom. I will not have timestamps in these videos, but you can kind of see where I am with the unit, and then you can backtrace like, okay, if I just want to see for a specific unit, I have to go a little bit back or I have to go a little bit forward. I think that's the easiest way to navigate through whatever unit you want to look for specifically, because I'm just going to click on the first unit and then go all the way through. And I will do that for each of the videos. Okay, so for the water one, I'm gonna skip through a bunch of units a little bit more, which are less meta relevant, because I noticed that took a lot of time on Fire to talk about those as well. But I'm just gonna say like, okay, less relevant for the meta, but you could go for like simple things. So this one less relevant for the meta, but accuracy S2, S3 or something like that. Megan definitely relevant, but accuracy S1, S2. You could go attack increasing effect, defense increasing effect, left side artifacts of reduction damage or anything like that. Not really used as well, maybe in accuracy S1 or anything like that. Mina is not used as much anymore, but if you were to use her, I would say crit damage S1, crit damage S2, probably more on the S1 than the S2, and then damage on specific element that you're attempting to hit, or crit damage is max or anything like that. Vigor can be built in many kind of shapes or ways, so it can be used in a lot of artifacts as well. So it kind of depends where you want to use it, how you want to use it, because the artifacts that are good for him is Recovery S2, Speed increasing effect, Crit damage S3, Accuracy S3, and then also additional damage by speed and additional damage by HP. So which one do you use where? Personally, I like the Crit damage skill 3 the most. If my figure is high crit rate, low crit damage. If my figure is low accuracy, I go for the accuracy S3. If my figure is just mainly a pure tank and a supportive unit, I like to go for additional damage by speed and HP. Or you can, if you have like a lost line somewhere in there, recovery S2 and then speed increasing effect. I would kind of go around these orders in those. Lulu is all about the recovery extra in all three skills, so definitely try to find an artifact that is not just like 20 on S3. Try to find that artifact that is like 12, 10, and for example 16 or something like that, or maybe 12 in all or 10 in all, something along the lines of that. Left side artifact is all about damage reduces against the thing that you are hitting. Ellena is not really used, but I could see something along the lines of crit damage increases, crit damage skill 2, and that kind of stuff. Kahn also not really used too much, but crit damage skill 3, and then whatever crit damage extra you can find and damage on specific element. Icaru, most of the time used with multiple Icarus, and therefore co-op damage is the thing that adds most damage to him. If your Icarus are pretty much built on no attack whatsoever, then a accuracy S1 is going to help him out. If they're already maxing out on the accuracy, I would go for additional damage by defense, because since they team up that many times, they do start to add up a little bit damage that way. Dagora is not really used at all, but I could see something along the lines of recovery S2 or something like that, and then damage reduces. Kacey, I don't even know what this unit does, in all honesty. Never being used, never being seen, so I'm just gonna skip it. Elucia, definitely a unit we do see. Accuracy S1 is pretty nice because that doesn't have like the super high activation rate. Recovery S2. S3 doesn't need any accuracy in there because it will always land. And then afterwards you can go for some damage decreases or additional damage by speed, HP, and then attacking that. Homunculus definitely depends where you use it, how you use it, but probably some damages up in any kind of shape or way, either through element or the specific crit damages up. Parjanya, I haven't really seen this unit being used all too much, but I think it will be something along the line. So it revives in here, okay, and it goes for attacks recover. So you could add some recovery. I think accuracy S2 will probably do a little bit on him. I'm not too sure about this unit, to be honest, in what kind of artifacts I would throw him on, in all honesty. So gonna kind of leave it into the middle. Maybe someone can put it in the comments. Brita is the water Ivor, and with water Ivor, I would say accuracy S1, accuracy S2 maybe, or just some additional damage artifacts. If you were to put her to max crit rate, you could also go for crit damages S1, S2, or any crit damage increases that way. Lionel, you could max him out on the accuracy S3 because the S1 and S2 don't really have accuracy checks, so definitely a high accuracy S3 would work a lot on him. Afterwards, it's kind of everything a little bit can work. Like you could add some crit damage increase, but probably not going to do much if you're low on crit dam or low on crit rate. But you could add some additional damage from whatever, like additional damage by speed or attack or HP in there. It's not going to do too much as well. I don't think it does anything at all. Some damage reduces is also an option. So there's a bunch of options, but I think it's just mainly about the accuracy S3. Zibala is definitely an accuracy S3 candidate because the S2 and S1 don't have any accuracy checks. So definitely accuracy S3 to max out the accuracy the highest as possible. Left side artifact, not too many things that useful. So I see a lot of people going for additional damage by speed and HP, even though it doesn't really have multi-hits, but it's just fitting in something that might have some value. Because she's, or he or she, I'm still not sure, is probably on a very high base speed, so definitely make use of that, I guess. Manon always has the defense buff cell, so defense increasing effect is definitely useful for her. Crit damage S1 and accuracy S1 are pretty nice. And then on the left side artifact could be either damage decreases or damage increases depending on what you want to hit, or just adding more crit damage there as well. Adriana is something that if you don't have max accuracy, you want to go for that accuracy S2. If you do happen to have max accuracy, I would go for recovery S1. Left side artifact, whatever damage reducer against whatever you expect it to be hit by, is probably the best way to go. Amber, I always used to use her on accuracy S2 if her accuracy wasn't maxed. However, she's kind of shit at the moment, but still probably accuracy S2, crit damage S2, those kind of things. Crit damage S2 only if she is max crit damage. And otherwise, you just go additional damage by speed, attack, and HP in that order. Minato is one of the units mainly used on Vampire. I think his S2 is the one that armor breaks, so you definitely can go. And I think the S2 is also what is used on the counter. Yes, that's correct. So if you go for any crit damages up, it's crit damage S2. Otherwise, extra damage by counter is good. Damage against specific element, if you're only using it against fire, for example, is good. And then accuracy S2 is also good. Liam is mainly about the S3, so crit damage S3. Crit damage is max, don't really value on him too much. So I think it's just the crit damage skill 3 and then whatever element you're expecting to hit, that element on higher damage in general. If you're not really sure and you use it in RTA, you could find this artifact that is like 10 on dark, 10 on fire, 10 on wind, 10 on water. Some kind of artifact along the lines of that and then use that on him. Aaliyah is also similar to Nora. You only have recovery on the S1. Wait, this has recovery on S3 as well. No, it doesn't have recovery on S3. It has recovery on the S4. So only recovery S1 actually works on Aaliyah. And that is pretty much the only thing you can go for. You could add in speed from lost HP and defense from lost HP on the right side. Left side is whatever thing you're hitting, the damage reduction. Miles is an interesting one because Miles actually does not work on additional damage on X element because his passive is just completely ignoring that. So what is actually useful on Miles is speed from lost HP, because speed from lost HP actually does give him more damage, whereas doing like extra damage on X element doesn't. Other thing that you can add is accuracy S2, which is pretty useful for trying to land that stun. And then afterwards you could go some damage reducers. Nana is definitely a candidate for an accuracy S2. If you happen to have Nana on pretty high crit rate, you could go crit damage S2, crit damage S1, and crit damage increases. If your Nana's just fully support kind of style, I would go additional damage from speed and HP in that order. And then attack maybe if you have a little bit of those as well. Shizuka is most likely 100 res, not that high on accuracy. So our right side is for sure a accuracy S3. Left side artifact, I would just go damage reduces, most likely on wind and then water and then light and dark if you still have like those spots in there. But that is about it for Shizuka. We don't really see this unit being used all too much. I could see him like having accuracy S1, S2, and then some damage decreases, and that's probably about it. More is definitely for accuracy S2 if your accuracy S2 is not maxed. Afterwards, it's all about the additional damage by speed, attack, and HP in that order. If you're with all of them, if you also have defense in there, it's the more the better in general. But something along the lines of that. If your more is crit rate on slot 4, you could also go for a crit damage S2 in him as well. Haegang is for sure a accuracy S2 if his accuracy is not maxed without it. Afterwards, Haegang doesn't really have too many useful artifact lines, so personally I just put some additional damage to him. However, he's not gonna have like a major value in that. You could also go for some damage reducers or something like that. Barbara is definitely crit damage increases, but she has crit damage increases on a lot of different things. And if you want to put high value to her S3 to get more attack bar in, crit damage max is definitely a way for her to go. Also, she's not drafted into too many things. I think she's only drafted into fire heavy teams. So in that case, a extra damage on fire will help her. Accuracy S2 is definitely also a good way for her to go on. I wouldn't go for first skill crit damage because first skill crit damage is not gonna make her actual damage hit on these two skills add in because it's only the first of those two hits that she does. So crit damage is up, extra damage in all kinds of shapes or way, and damage on fire probably. Belial, he used to be used in Giant Speed 10 or Breed 12, and we don't really see him being used too much anymore at all. So back then it was co-op damage and then crit damage as one kind of style. Currently he's not really being used too much. Well, he's being used in siege offenses, and the siege offense is just a crit damage S2 and then extra damage on whatever element you're trying to snipe with him. Bolverk, I actually did see this going wrong in the APAC Cup. The only artifact on Bolverk that makes sense is Recovery S3 because you can actually recover more than you do damage for. I saw this in APAC, one of the players actually did not have that, so definitely a very important thing. If you add like 20 or 24% recovery on the S3, you start to heal an insane amount. Another thing that you can add in is accuracy S1, but only if this thing is also maxed, because some people tend to not max this, especially if it's for siege. Left side artifact is just damage reducers, but also speed lost HP, defense lost HP are pretty good on him. Abellio, I would definitely say for recovery S3, but also crit damage S2 is very useful. Left side artifact, I tend to go for crit damage own or crit damage max or min, that kind of stuff. Because most of the time you're using Abellio into something that you're not entirely sure what's going to be hitting him. So going for damage reducers or going for damage increases is kind of... yeah, you're not entirely sure in RTA what you're going to be hit by. You could say extra damage on fire, but in general just extra crit damages is the safe way to go. Josephine would definitely go for a crit damage S1. Accuracy S1, accuracy S2 is a possibility. Left side artifact, still going for extra crit damages because their S1 always crits. So if you have that extra crit damage low, crit damage max, crit damage own skill, all of that kind of crit damage is in, she starts tending to hit quite hard on the S1. And that's the main reason I would use that. Amelia has a few things that are useful. She does recover on the S3, so recovery increasing effect helps. Accuracy S2 kind of helps. Accuracy S1 kind of helps, and then left side is just damage reduces on whatever you expect to be hit by. Manon has a few interesting ones as well. You could go for damage on X element. I think that's the most interesting one you can have. Currently, I would say that water is most likely the most interesting there is. So you can one-shot like Miles, you can one-shot Shizukas, or not one-shot, but close to one-shot those kind of units. It used to be on the wind to one-shot Dianas and that kind of stuff, but in most cases, currently right now, if I'm seeing being used, it's the one-shot water units. Afterwards, you could, if it's vampire, add in life drain, so this skill actually gives you more damage back as well, or more HP back as well. Afterwards, it's additional damage by HP and speed, and then defense in that order. Samantha has a good crit damage S2 and S3 potential, so crit damage max and crit damage low is also useful. But what you can also do if you expect your Samantha or Pisama, whatever you want to call it, to die most of the time, is attack from lost HP. Attack from lost HP is actually very nice because he gets back with 30% HP, so if you have, let's say, a 100% attack from lost HP, he will get a 70% attack boost on this number of attacks. So 70% of this attack, he will gain extra on that. So it makes him hit pretty hard in that in general. But then again, you don't always have him dying in every match, and he shouldn't be reset and that kind of stuff. So accuracy S2 is also a safe bet on. Bastet doesn't have too much going for her in artifacts, so definitely I would go for accuracy S2 if your accuracy is not that high. Afterwards, it's just additional damage from speed, HP, and defense in that order. Poseidon has a bunch of useful things. If your accuracy isn't maxed, and I think most Poseidons will not have max accuracy, I would definitely go for an accuracy skill 3 to get that as high as possible. Afterwards, it's just crit damage, skill 3, attack increasing effects, and crit damage is max, because most of the time it's a cleaver unit, which will hit as the first of the team, so crit damage max is very useful. Mars has a bunch of things that are very good. You could go for crit damage as 2, crit damage as 1. Single target crit damage is very good too. Accuracy S2 is very good, crit damage is low and crit damage is max are also very good. But left side artifact in most cases with Mars, I just find this artifact that has a little bit of elemental damage on everything. So one that is like, I think I had one that was like 14 on fire, 10 on dark, 5 on light, and then a little bit something on something else. I think those artifacts on Mars, especially on defense, and if you're not entirely sure what Mars is going to be hitting, is probably one of the better artifacts to go for. Ellenia, I would say, is mostly about killing with the S3, but also doing a lot of damage on the S2. So crit damage S2 has a high value, crit damage S3 has a high value. If you're not using the S3 against something that you are guaranteed to be having armor broken first, because there's certain comps where you use it without an armor breaker, then attack increasing effect and additional damage from attack are very useful. And then damage on whatever element you're expecting to hit. Woosa is pretty much just a recovery S2, accuracy S1 is pretty decent too. However, besides that, there's not too much stuff that goes his way, so some damage reducers are decent. Wait, you can actually add extra damage on this as well towards certain elements. So I think a lot of people used to have that extra damage on wind, but I would say extra damage on water is probably also a way to go. And similar with Mars, if you have an artifact that has a whole bunch of things, like a bit on water, a bit on light, a bit on dark, a bit on wind, definitely something that's good for that S2 too. We don't really see being used all too much. Does have multi-hit, so you could go additional damage artifacts. You could add in the accuracy on the S3 or just add extra crit damage on her in any kind of shape. Chandra doesn't have too much going for him in sense of artifacts, so I would say accuracy S1. S3 doesn't really have that much of an interesting accuracy check. Afterwards, it's just some, I don't know, damage reducers. You could put, if you have him decent on the crit rate, you could put crit damage increases in the input too, and that's probably about it. Ariel is probably just all about recovery S3, recovery S2, and then damage reducers on left side, probably what you expect to be hit by. Shi Hou, bunch of options for him. You could go for accuracy S2, S3. I would say more on accuracy S2 than S3, because S3 has the multi-hits and is most likely to land that strip throughout anyways. You can go crit damage kind of S3s, but in most cases I kind of like to go him on additional damage of speed and attack, because those are very high scaling for this monkey and he has all kinds of multi-hits in that. So additional damage by speed, attack, and then HP is very useful. Chow has a bunch of things that work for him. Crit damage S2 is pretty useful. Accuracy S1 to land this dot is pretty useful. Recovery S3. And I think you only will pull Chow into full fire team, so extra damage on fire probably helps you. Anavel is a bunch of things as well. Accuracy S3, accuracy S1 even, recovery S2, and then probably just full on damage reduces. I would definitely go damage reduction on water and wind. On Praha, you could go for S2 accuracy or S3 accuracy or S3 recovery. Wouldn't really do that. I would go full on the additional damage by speed, HP, attack, and defense in that order. And if you have one artifact that has all 3 lines, or all 4 lines, that would be best for her. Taor has a bunch of interesting things. You can go for high crit damage on the S2, that's an option. You could go for speed increasing effect to make this attack speed become higher as well. You could also say I go higher for the accuracy S3. So definitely I like to go left side, extra damage on specific element if I only use them against fire, for example. But since this guarantees the crit, you can kind of use them against everything. So crit damage max maybe becomes more interesting. And then an accuracy S3. Sigmaris, I would just say any kind of shape or way, crit damage increases plus extra damage of fire, that's most likely where you're going to be using him. For red, if you use him together with a defense buffer, I would definitely go for defense increasing effect. Afterwards, accuracy S3, accuracy S2 is very useful. After that, it's probably just some crit damages up on any kind of shape or way if you actually have decent crit rate on him. Camilla has a whole bunch of useful things. You can go for a accuracy S2 or crit damage S2. In Siege, we see a lot of high recovery S3 because she's more of a support. Left side artifact is all of those kind of damage reducers that you can find. But in RTA, you could also say I mainly use it against fire, so I do extra damage on fire. And if you go crit damage S2, if you have high crit rate, this actually starts tending to do a lot of damage, same as what we see in the Abyss dungeon where you just do a lot of damage enemy max. I'm not really too familiar with this unit in all honesty, but I would definitely say that if you use it with an attack buffer, then I would go for attack increasing effect. Besides that, it's additional damage by attack, most likely the best way to go for this unit. This one is also not really used all too much. I would say that you can max out the accuracy and then crit damage S3 and then crit damage increases in any kind of shape or way. Same for this unit, not being used all too much, never actually been seeing used it. So to be honest, it has some multi-hits and that kind of stuff. So additional damage artifacts probably the way to go. I haven't really seen this cookie being used much, to be honest, no clue. Same for this one, we can just skip this one, never really seen used, and I don't think the unit is that great for it at the moment. Burman, also haven't really seen him being used at all, so I will skip this. Susan, same thing, skipping. This Robo is only used for R5, doesn't need artifacts in there, so I'm gonna skip as well. Suiki is definitely a nice one. Accuracy S1 is very nice. You can go Life Drain, is pretty good on this unit in general, but preferably I would go for anything from lost HP. So that could be the speed, attack, or defense from lost HP. All three will do pretty well on him. And if you tend to build him or use him into fire units, then you can go extra damage on fire as well. Or just extra damage on pretty much all of them, like a combination of it. This unit you could go, I think we can skip it. It's not really used all too much. You could go for additional damage artifacts, but I don't think this unit is being used that much. Same, oh no, wait, this is actually the Dalsim Water, and this one you mainly want to go for crit damage S1, crit damage S2, crit damage increases, and then anything that improves the damage on specific element. Songseal, I haven't really seen this unit being used all too much. You could say accuracy S2 for extra stun potential. And after that, I would go for additional damage by speed, most likely because we have a multi-hit hero, multiple targets, and high base speed. So that's probably the way to go. I haven't really seen this unit being used ever, but I could see something along the lines of accuracy increases and then damage reduces. Abigail is definitely what we see in Necro, but then without this skill. And then the main thing that you want to use her on is accuracy S2 if she's not maxed on that. And furthermore, just additional damage artifacts on like attack speed. Or if she's actually high on the crit rate and low on the crit damage, you can add some crit damage increases as well. Covenant is all about the S3, so crit damage S3, but also try to add in attack increasing effect, left side artifact, whatever you're expecting to hit more extra damage on that element. Hernie, I would say accuracy S3 if she doesn't have max accuracy. Besides that, recovery S2, left side artifact, any damage reduces what you expect to be hit by. Sabrina, same for all of the twins. The best thing that you can put on any of the twins is the co-op damage. Afterwards, her accuracy S2 is an option, or accuracy S1 is kind of an option. If it's paired next to Shina, it's not really needed that much. So just add more damage in her in general on either specific element or just extra crit damages. Same thing for Talia, co-op damage first, afterwards crit damage S3, and then also damage on specific element. Sonnet, really haven't seen this unit being used all too much, actually. I would say that since she has a lot of debuffs, maybe add in extra accuracy and then some damage reducers or something. Reno, haven't seen him being used all too much, probably additional damage artifacts, that's it, or some crit damage S3 or so. Chilling, we do see being used. I would definitely say that you want to go for maybe accuracy S1 or just additional damage artifacts in the sense of speed, HP, and then attack. Enough is not used for much more than just the S3 in most cases, but actually does have decent damage on the S2 if you build him fast enough and high crit rates, so crit damage S2 and then some crit damage increases is an option. If he's only used for his S3, then just damage reduces in whatever sense of thing that you expect to be hit by element. Avaris, really haven't seen this unit being used all too much. I would just say anything to improve his damage, crit damages, specific element damage, that kind of. Emma, I haven't really seen her being used all too much. I think additional damage artifacts don't really do too much to her, so it's probably recovery S3 and then damage reduces on the left side. Brian, also not really seen too much, but I could say some crit damage overall things. He does have attack power up by himself, so you can go for attack increasing effect. And then attacking on extra damage element that you expect. Stella, in most cases, I've seen it being built on a crit rate slot 4. So crit damage skill 3 is very nice. Accuracy skill 3 is very nice. Additional damage by speed and attack is very nice. Probably more attack than speed. But anything to add extra damage that way, and accuracy skill 3 is probably the way to go. Lapis is mainly used in PvE kind of scenarios, and I would say additional damage by attack or additional damage on specific element is nice. If you're very low on the accuracy S2 is pretty. Tetra is 100% all the way on the recovery S3, afterwards on speed, lost HP, especially because her base speed is very high. And afterwards you can go like some damage reducers. Galleon, you definitely want to go for the accuracy S3 if your accuracy is not towards 85. If it is 85 and you have some crit rate rate, I would go crit damage S1, S2, or own skill crit damage max, whatever on that kind of stuff. If you don't have high crit rate and crit damage on that thing, yeah, then you're kind of out of useful things. You could, however, also go for an attack increasing effect that he still adds a little bit more damage that way. And that's better than just going crit rate and crit damage artifacts when you don't have any crit rate or crit damage. Haegang goes for the crit damage S3 or own skill crit damage on a specific element. You could go accuracy S2, S3 as well, but I would have like a decent amount of accuracy on him, like 25 to like 45-ish in general, because all 3 skills actually have an accuracy check in there in general. And then maybe damage on specific element if you're using it only against fire. Gildong, I don't think this unit is really used, but you could go some accuracy S3, crit damage S3, and the rest of the skills are less useful, I would. Mi Ying is pretty interesting. You could go recovery S3, crit damage S2, or otherwise you go additional damage by speed, HP, and attack in that order. You could go also if you specifically expect it to be hitting fire units, extra damage on fire, or if you use it as a tank reduction damage from wind, for example. Malaka, I don't think this thing is really used, even though the S3 has like one of the cutest looking pictures in the game. Didn't even notice that. Oh wait, you have both of them over here. However, just I would say bomb damage increasing and attack increasing effect, that's about it. Orion is, if you don't have max accuracy on the S3, accuracy S3 for sure. Afterwards, I would go for additional damage by speed, HP, or damage reduces on the left side. Shaolin, anything to improve damage on crit damage max or crit damage increases, probably used into a specific element only as well, so the extra elemental damage. And then that's about it. Cass, I would say if he's used probably into specific elements as well, so that extra damage on those elements, and then crit damage S4 mainly, and then S3 also if you have it, if you don't have the combination. Rigel is somewhat weird. You could say I put a lot of stats to him in HP and attack, and then you go for additional damage by HP and attack. If he's higher on the crit rate, you could also go for a crit damage S2. And he also has the potential for an accuracy. And if he's used against fire only, then extra damage. Fedora, I don't really think this unit is being used all too much. Probably some accuracy increases, damage reduces, that's it. Su, not really used too much, damage increases, damage on X element. Liesel, I would say a crit damage S3, because this always crits on fire already anyways. You could also go accuracy S3, and that's probably it for him. And then afterwards, I'm not entirely sure. His damage is somewhat lackluster because of HP type, I would say. Lure is probably accuracy S3. This thing does hit right now with crit damage, because before it was always a crushing hit. Now you can actually do damage with it, and I'm not sure if this actually does that much damage. Probably some damage increases, crit damage is max, that kind of stuff. Julie is always a good combination between crit damage S3, attack increasing effect if you use it with an attack bar or an attack buff booster. Attack booster? Yeah, just attack booster. Jesus, speaking so much! Besides that attack increasing effect, but also additional damage by speed, by HP, attack, everything can help out a little bit. Mainly by speed and attack, I would say, depending where and how you use her. And then you can also do damage on X. Susanoo, crit damage S2, crit damage S1. You could go for the life drain extra, because he's most likely on a vampire build as well. But also, speed from lost HP is pretty nice on him too, because it's S1 and S2 both deal extra damage to speed. So he is more likely to get the turn also with the passive. But he also starts dealing more damage if you actually add more speed to him. So speed lost HP is very high value on him. And then if you only use him against fire, additional damage on fire is nice too. Sion is just all about increasing the bomb damage. If you always use it with an attack buffer, then you go attack increasing effect as well. Otherwise, it's just full on the bomb damage. Isaria, I would say if your accuracy is not max accuracy S3, S1, and you can go additional damage by speed, HP, and attack in that. Dumarisha, I don't think anyone ever uses this, but whatever recoveries or something like that, we can kind of skip. Tyrone, if you don't have max accuracy, I would go S3, S2 on accuracy, but I think you should max accuracy on this unit, and then everything that becomes useful is just additional damage by speed, attack, and HP in that order. Mikain, I don't think anyone uses this, so let's just skip. Soha, I think even after buff, no one really uses this in the first place as well, but you can max out these accuracies and then go for additional damage on a little bit of everything. This thing, also not really used, so just gonna skip. Remy is also not really used at all, let's skip. Ellen is used in Special League from time to time. I think you could go for some additional damage kind of stuff or maxing out the accuracy. That is probably about it. Tractor is additional damage from defense and maybe some damage reduces, but mainly just the additional damage from defense, both sides. Accuracy S1 is not too bad on him either. We see a whole bunch of units that we're going to skip. Let's see if there's anything still kind of used out there that didn't already have a 2A. Wayne is used from time to time. I would definitely say that if you use this skill that you would go for additional damage by speed, because multi-hitting and then high base speed and speed buff in that sense. Do we see anything else that is pretty useful? I don't really think so. Yep, that's pretty much just about it. Oh, we have Konomiya, and Konomiya is just a recovery S3, and that's all there is to it. So that's everything for water. Hope you enjoyed this video, and it's a lot of talking, so bear with me if I made a few mistakes here and there. Guys, thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.